Okay. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Middle East Forum's weekly podcast series. My name is Anaf Kalam, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Now, since October 7th of 2023, the Middle East has been transformed by the 2025 Israel-Iran war more recently, with profound strategic, diplomatic, and military consequences. The historical Israel-Iran relationship, the potential for resolution, and the October 7th massacres' impact, a humanitarian and military tragedy that shattered a radical ideology, have redefined the region's geopolitical order. How will this conflict reshape the Middle East's power dynamics, and what are the prospects for peace or for further escalation in this conflict? Now, joining us to discuss all of this today and more is Gadeer Kamal-Mreeh, who is the director of the Eastern Mediterranean Policy at the Middle East Forum and the founder of GKM Global Consulting. Now, as always, during this broadcast, we welcome your audience questions, which you can ask by using the Q&A box located in your Riverside window or by using the chat function inside of the YouTube live stream. And with that, I would like to welcome Gadeer Kamal-Mreeh. It's very good to have you.
Good evening, Anaf. Good evening from Israel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Now, just to begin here, maybe you can kind of give us a big bird's eye picture of how things have changed and how they might have shifted between the October 7th massacre up until today at the close of the 12-day war between Israel and Iran.
Yeah, so we are witnessing dramatic days, months, and years in which the Middle East is reshaping itself. I call it the constructive chaos, historic moments in which all arenas, so many countries are rebuilding themselves. The leadership are changing in so many countries, allies, and even enemies. So let me take you, to go in the macro perspective, what is happening. Israelis were waiting for this moment. The Israeli society knew that now it is the time to eliminate the head of the octopus. Since October 7th, we were dealing with the tentacles, we were dealing with all these proxies, the ring of fire that Iran or the Islamic regime specifically succeeded to build around us. The Israeli society in this war, we are talking about enlisted society, a drafted society, understanding post-October 7th that this is a war of necessity, Anaf. This is a war, an avoidable war, that post-October 7th, it is reflecting the zero trust doctrine that Israel adapted post-October 7th in the way of we don't rely on any international guarantees. We withdrew completely from Lebanon in 2000. We got Hezbollah with the eighth biggest missile arsenal in the world, an army that is threatening our northern border. In 2005, we withdrew completely from Gaza, and what we found was Hamas, terrible leadership with terrible priority. Although a huge amount of money was invested in Gaza with regional players, international organizations, now we understand that Hamas was building Gaza underground and not investing in the human capital. So now Israel is implementing the zero trust doctrine in the way of we are responsible to eliminate every threat in the region and go once and for all and to try to find a permanent solution for this ring of fire. And as an Israeli, I would tell you that Israel succeeded to implement or learning from past mistakes that we did. If I take you back with me to October 7th, in which we had domestically the chaos, the environment in Israel in which there was no any official talking to the public, no one explaining what is happening. Israel was prepared very well to the war with Iran. And some people mistakenly would say post-October 7th, Israel started preparing for that. As we know, no. Israel was preparing this war for almost 2 decades, including working with IDF, with the Mossad, with different security units, understanding that this is the existential threat that we need to work with. So as an Israeli, I would tell you that it started at 2:58 a.m. with this grandiose, I would say, massive imaginary attack. In 2 minutes, the state of Israel woke up all of its citizens in an alarm to explain to the public, hey, we are in the war, and with the whole respect to Hamas and to their rockets, here it's a different level. We are speaking about a country which is 80 times bigger than Israel. Iran is a massive country, geographically, a big country with 90 million citizens, 1,600 kilometers away. And the first initial estimate was that the Islamic regime would launch 600 till 1,000 missiles in the first hour. So it was crucial to prepare the public, and in 2 minutes to wake up everyone and to prepare for this war. I will tell you that IDF sent officials that they were waiting in the parking lots of every Israeli news media outlet for 45 minutes. In the first hour, our prime minister was on TV in a recorded message explaining to the public, wake up, we are in a war. So understanding that we are here dealing with a different scenario, with a different enemies, although we had now, the war is ended, although there was an interesting announcement now that the US administration would allow Israel to strike again in Iran. It's too early to understand what does that mean. Let us wait and see. Although we had casualties, Israelis were killed, injured, although 4 layers of defense, but enough this war succeeded to reignite our national pride. The rising lion, Israel is back again as the strongest army, as the strongest country in the region in so many layers. I would tell you, seeing these visuals of Mossad agents operating freely in Iran, it succeeded to send a very strong message to the region and to the globe. Israel is back again.
Now there's a lot in there, and maybe that's my fault because I asked a very big question from the get-go. But just what you were saying when you ended there about just the total success of Israel's military operations in Iran. I mean, in like you said, a country that's 80 times the size, over 1,000 miles away, it took almost no time for Israel to completely own the skies over Tehran. And like you said, we see these Mossad agents operating in the open. The IRGC and its leadership are, running scared and hiding. What do you make of this idea that for many years, the strategy in Gaza seemed to be the mowing the grass strategy, right? Where you would take care of the problem just enough and eventually enable it to grow back and to rearm and to reorganize. What do you make of the idea that in Iran, to not fully engage in allowing a full regime change, a full end of the Islamic Republic, would you say it's similar to kind of mowing the grass in Iran or putting out, as they say, 80% of the fire?
Wow. So I said, ironically, one of our challenges would be to explain to the next generations how this tiny country called Israel is succeeding to challenge this huge country called Iran. So for your question, there are so many. I don't think even that we are in the PTSD level as Israelis. Some of us are still living in this national trauma called October 7th. And, there is broad consensus that this war is crucial. Some people maybe don't know, but Israel and Iran, we were de facto allies, historically sharing projects and having strong intelligence, economic ties. And ironically, we built the Iranian infrastructure, the intelligence, the military infrastructure. But now we are asking ourselves in that soul searching, Anna, was it too late? We were drawn in the conception of everyone is deterred, our allies. By the way, not just in Iran, in all arenas. If you explore our behavior as Israel, we thought everyone is deterred. We are untouchable. We were, having these Qatari cash suitcases that were going to Hamas leaders. Now we understand that it was a mistake. Now we understand or learning from our mistakes. And maybe some people even are asking, was it too late? If I go back with you historically, our former Prime Minister Begin, when he knew in 1979 about the new Iraqi nuclear project, it took him just 2 years to strike and to destroy the Iraqi nuclear project that was destroyed in 1981. If we go to 2004, when Israel saw what's happening in Syria, that Bashar al-Assad, the dictator in Syria, was interested to have a nuclear project. When Olmert was elected in 2006, he ordered immediately that attack that happened in 2007. So we are talking about 2 years to destroy the Iraqi nuclear project, 1 year to destroy the Syrian nuclear project. So we are asking ourselves, was it too late? Because Israel saw in 1992 the first initial signs that Iran is going to build this nuclear project. So yes, Prime Minister Netanyahu was talking about that, alarming in every international stage about the threat, but it took us 33 years to really attack, to really destroy. So there are so many questions, which is if I go back to Lebanon and nearby Lebanon, same. We withdrew completely from Lebanon in 2000, but Hezbollah was building their military capabilities freely, I would say, for 25 years, reaching to a huge amount of arsenal. We are talking about 150,000 missiles. So many questions in that soul searching that we have on Israel. And now, post October 7th, we are re-educating the region that we are talking about different Israel. Zero trust. And maybe now we have the new announcement that the US would allow, let's say, a Lebanese style remote enforcement model. Would that work? What are the ramifications of that in different arenas? So we are talking about crucial, amazing moments in the Middle East.
Now, you brought up briefly their past operations in Syria by the Israelis. Maybe you can and can't answer this, but going to, I guess, just an operational planning, tactical perspective, how would you say these operations carried out by the Israelis and actually largely by the United States varied from the operations when the Israelis had to take out the Syrian and the Iraqi nuclear facilities when they were facing an equal existential threat?
I am not a military expert, but I can tell you that they succeeded, Iran or the Islamic regime, they succeeded to build very massive and distributed in a huge area in Iran, these 10 nuclear sites that they were challenging our military capabilities. It's not by coincidence that Israel was waiting for the B2, understanding that we are talking, for example, you are talking about a site that was buried down in that mountain. We are talking about 60 till 90 meters in that mountain that, experts are saying Israel wouldn't launch this war if it doesn't have a creative solution that I would say in a quote that wouldn't be that clean to destroy it. So Israel, yes, was relying on the US. By the way, I am really waiting to read history books. The deception, the brilliant deception. By the way, it was a fusion of both levels. There were a channel of real, authentic enthusiasm among Trump administration to reach a deal agreement. We understand that the president's electorate or case or base is not enthusiastic to go now to a war in the Middle East, but to bring the MAGA back again. But there was so much brilliant deception tools implemented, by the way, by both administrations in Israel and here in Jerusalem and in DC. Do you remember the Barnea famous visit of the Mossad with Ron Dermer on Sunday, the wedding of Prime Minister Netanyahu's son on Monday, which was real? But there was a dark internal humor domestically in Israel that the strike would be on Tuesday. No one predicted that it would happen. So it was very creative work with these conflicting messages of talking diplomacy, preparing a war with two layers of, yes, we are serious. We want to reach an agreement, but also we are going to have a war if the, let's say, coercive diplomacy wouldn't work.
All right, thank you. Now, I see that we have several audience questions here, so I'm going to take a few of those if you don't mind. I will start with one from Yosef, who asks, was the 1979 Iranian Revolution inevitable? If so, was a win by the Islamists inevitable, or could they have been easily suppressed by the Shah?
Interesting question. So we touched that earlier, that till 1979, we were allies. Israel and Iran, de facto allies. Both of us, we are talking about non-Arab states, pro-Western states, enjoying very strong intelligence and military ties, even building projects together in 1979, maybe as educational tool to emphasize that then when we had the Islamic Revolution, then the Shah, the king, was overthrown. Ayatollah Khomeini became the supreme leader. Then he created what was called what is still called the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, to protect the Islamic regime that started as a separate military force, separated than the regular official army. But historically, they succeeded to penetrate very well in Iran, in business, in even in foreign operations. And suddenly they were so succeeding very well that they wanted to bring back the regional Persian aspiration. As you know, we call it the head of the octopus sending tentacles to destabilize the whole region. Even Anaf, as you know, the Islamic regime they were declaring proudly that we are actually de facto controlling 4 capitals. We are controlling the capital of Lebanon, Beirut, through Hezbollah. We are controlling the capital of Syria, Damascus, through militias. We are controlling the capital of Yemen, Sana'a, through the Houthis, who becomes now so trendy. And we are controlling the capital of Iraq, Baghdad, through Iraqi militias. So they were operating, again, training, funding these tentacles, and working in the blocking any attempt of other, by the way, countries in the region to join the Western Bloc or to embrace Israel or to have or to develop democratic characteristics in their governments. So from I would say a U.S. point of view, it was a Cold War that reshaped the whole or the entire Middle East, and that couldn't allow any full integration of the region to the U.S. And we know, by the way, that one of the goals, the war would be ended when we achieve one of these 2 goals, or to destroy the nuclear and the missile arsenal. And the second one that was not officially and then was adapted. And today our Defense Minister Katz said that it's not a formal goal to change the regime, but we were seeking to destabilize the regime. So for your question, I don't think that it was avoidable. We need to learn the history or the unique characteristics of the Iranian people. We are talking about 90 million citizens in this massive country with different ethnicities, with different backgrounds and languages, and I would say a rich mosaic. So I always say, be careful of what you wish. Now it became very trendy. Do you remember even when President Trump was talking about the MEGA, the Make Iran Great Again?
Right,
Suddenly
right.
we were succeeding very well. But okay, let us change the regime. But hey, hold your horses. The Middle East taught us that the opposite of autocracy is not always a democracy in the Middle East, and we need to remember that. We saw the chaos that happened when we tried, or the globe tried, to change the regime in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria. Even the U.S. had not that successful experiences when the U.S. trying to change or to influence regime in Latin America. So history taught us that we need to be very careful. Sometimes you need to rely on authentic, organic, I would say, tools of the public. Although everyone was so enthusiastic and, influencers in the diaspora. I live in Washington, D.C. Now I am visiting Israel. But my neighbor, Raza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, the iconic leader then, he tried now to ride the wave with so many leadership from outside, but I think they lack let's say, the powerful or the domestic political influence to lead it. The result is the regime is still there, Khamenei is still there, but it's too early to predict if now we would see in the summer another strike or another model of new zero trust diplomacy or doctrine. So let's see how things are going to be in Iran or in this relationship of this war between Israel and Iran.
All right, thank you. Now, there's another question here in the audience. I feel you would be very appropriate to answer it, as I understand you are Druze. Um, it's a question from Roni, who asks, she has two questions. One, what is the Druze perspective of everything going on in the Middle East? This would include the Druze in Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. And do you think that Iran is on the verge of collapse?
Hmm. So first section of this question, you know, the Druze people are very tiny minority in the world. We are talking about 1.5 million Druze members. The majority are living in the Middle East, in Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. And there are so many unique facts about the Druze religion. The Druze religion was originated 1,000 years ago in Egypt from the Islam, the Shia Islam. We are consider ourselves a separate religion. And one of the most important facts that I want you to remember about the Druze that we have no any territorial or national aspiration. It's not written in our religion that one day we will have our own promised own homeland. That is why you are loyal as a Druze to the country that you were born in. That is why Israeli Druze are loyal to Israel. Lebanese Druze are loyal to Lebanon, Syrian to Syria, and Jordanian to Jordan. That is why in Israel, the Druze people are the loyalist minority living in Israel. We draft into army in the highest percentage. 82% of the Druze people draft into army. It is higher enough than the number among the Jewish sector, which is around 74%. So I believe the integration of the Druze people in Israel, it's a successful model of an integration of a minority in a state. I'm a former legislator. I broadcasted news in Israel in two languages, in Arabic and Hebrew, sometimes on the same day. And I would tell you, I think and dream in Hebrew. The language as crucial part of your identity. So Israeli Druze are Israelis more than Israelis. So when people ask me what Druze people feel about X, Y, Z, I always say like everyone, like every Israeli. And for the second question, if you would see a near collapse of Iran, I would say hold your horses. It's too early to predict. And technically the war is ended, but it's not done yet. Our IDF Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, he said, listen, 2025 is going to be a year of a war. Although the Gazan we probably will reach an agreement in Gaza, some would say in Thursday, some are less enthusiastic. As you know, all arenas are connected. The political arena, by the way, if you are following, and I am sure our audience are following in depth, there is tectonic earthquake now in Israel about the ultra-Orthodox IDF draft. We are talking about 54 IDF order, IDF draft orders that were sent to the ultra-Orthodox sector that, as you know, are opposing the idea. So I would say we have, if we zoom out in the macro perspective, we have three clocks: the Iranian clock, that it's too early to predict; the Gazan clock or the Palestinian clock, which, even though if we have an agreement, let's say, how are we going to deal with the hot potato? There will be the deportation of the leadership. By the way, there was a funny announcement today by an Israeli official who said today, okay, we don't need a cruise or a big ship for the deportation because all of them are killed. We are talking about a symbolic act in that agreement. The question is, and the real problematic here, Klaus, who is going to lead Gaza? Who is going to govern Gaza on the day after? And the third one, of course, is the political arena that, Prime Minister Netanyahu succeeded to stabilize the political arena, but it's still unstable yet. So as an Israeli, I'm telling you, Israel produced news in one day more than countries would produce in a week or a month. Everything is so intense, and we are witnessing dramatic, rapid developments in the Middle East that are reflecting the Israeli both domestic, regional, and global policy.
All right, thank you. Now, not to jump to back and forth between different topics here, there's one thing that I am interested in asking you, and my question actually comes from an article that was published at the Middle East Forum over the weekend from Sirwan Kajo about the question of Syria. And he argues that despite a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the movements and signaling that's happening in Syria, where they intend to make, at least on paper, make peace with Israel. A lot of the world, particularly in the region, still sees Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Ahmed al-Shara as affiliate of Islamic State, as a terrorist group that is now wearing suits and ties. Do you
Yeah.
think now is a time for Israel and Syria to achieve peaceful relations, or do you think we should, as you say, hold your horses?
First, there are direct calls between Israel and Syria. Who would imagine that we are saying what we are saying? We are talking about direct calls, by the way, not just in Azerbaijan, also in Jerusalem. That I don't see them being a full agreement. I would see that they would be at first phase like security agreement that would be leveraged or translated later maybe to kind of economic ties, or then later to kind of Abraham Accords version 2. That, by the way, we are talking, and this is part of the goal in that visit of our Prime Minister Netanyahu in DC now. Uh, which is a challenge, by the way. How are we going now to connect all arenas and to translate our military achievements in this war into political achievements? There are calls, by the way, with Malaysia. I don't see Malaysia joining any kind of normalization tomorrow morning, but Indonesia, when I see the name Indonesia, as you know, we are talking about the biggest Islamic country in the world. That would be a key that would open further normalizations for the state of Israel globally. We could talk about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, by the way, is very enthusiastic in this normalization. They see the whole triangle, US, Israel, Saudi Arabia. It's not just the bilateral of Israel, Saudi Arabia. As you know, I was in Dubai yesterday. When we talk with the whole respect to the Abraham Accords, with the huge positive ramifications that we succeeded to rebuild the Middle East, but UAE is not Saudi Arabia. UAE is 10% local citizen nationals, and the other are foreigners that, post October 7th, when I was there, I was asking them what they think about the war. Guess what, Anas? They don't know where Israel, some of them, exist on the map. They less care about the war. So beyond Syria, even Saudi Arabia, with the symbol of Islam, the two holiest cities of Islam, Mecca, Medina. So it's part of a broader vision that I believe the President Trump is seeing and trying to implement in the Middle East, that Syria would be part of it. It's not just about Syria. It's maybe to include Syria, Lebanon. By the way, when we zoom out more, look what happened post October 7. On October 7, now we understand as Israelis that there was a very well prepared plan to a joint attack, not just by Hamas, but by Hezbollah from Lebanon in the north, by the Iranian regime, by the Houthis, that would be a real existential threat, unprecedented threat. The fatal mistake of Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, of not coordinating enough, in quotes, not waiting for his allies. Look at the domino effect. When you play chess, I don't know if you play chess, you try to prepare at least 10 steps ahead. So Sinwar planned the first one. He attacked Israel. But then look how that attack reshaped the entire Middle East in the absolutely in the opposite direction of the interests of these enemies. Look what's happening in Gaza. There was an Palestinian or Hamas official today on the BBC. He said we lost control on 70% of the territory in Gaza. We are not naive. All of us are intellectually mature enough to understand that you cannot defeat a terror when the hardest thing to change are perceptions. But yes, we succeeded to create a great damage to Hamas, that they are not anymore a threat to our national security. So I don't want to stop just with Syria. I would take it with me to Lebanon. Who would imagine that in Lebanon, after 2 years, you have a new government, new leadership, new president, that Beirut would send in the war a signal to Hezbollah, hold your horses and even don't think joining the war. Who would imagine? So we have very positive signals from Lebanon today. Joseph Aoun, the new Lebanese president, answered Tom Barak. As you know, Tom is the new senior envoy for Lebanon, for Syria, the ambassador to Turkey with a huge power appointed by President Trump, and he's very enthusiastic with peace. Is that going to happen? When and how? If we go to Syria, I don't know how to call it. Yes, he is the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Sometimes a stranger wouldn't understand the ties to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda. So we are still exploring these positive signals, but is he still the caliph in the suit? Are we talking about Al-Julani, Anaf? Are we talking about a new promising central leader, Ashara? Again, it's too early, but the fact that there are direct calls and that the US is putting huge pressure toward kind of agreement, at least security agreement to stabilize the Middle East, at least in this phase, is positive. If I take you to, did you see the announcement of the Iraqi militias, another proxy of Iran during the war? It was amazing. It was kind of, we think Iran can handle the war alone, and we are not joining the war. The Houthis in Yemen, I would expect much more from the Houthis. They didn't do the job that Iran at least equipped them, prepared them for the mission of their life. They were attacked and they were trying solely to survive even by their superpower, China. You saw the Chinese, the Xi Jinping, how he acted, like kind of laconic for the protocol response, calling for ceasefire, for de-escalation. So it's beyond Syria. This is what I am trying to say. It's the whole Middle East that rebuilding itself, and this is our challenge now. How can we build a new architect, a new shape of the Middle East that would serve the interest, the security interest, and not just the Israeli one, the US one, for further normalization, for further stability in the Middle East.
Now, you brought up something there. I understand we're out of time here and we're going a little over, but you brought up something really great, and I'm really glad that you mentioned it. But just the missteps by Yahya Sinwar and the other architects of October 7th, it it's so comical. It reminds me of like Wile E. Coyote in the Roadrunner. Who would have ever thought that Yahya Sinwar launching the October 7th attacks and the domino effect to follow would lead to the destruction of Natanz and Fordo in Iran?
That's right.
Um,
Ironically, tragically, I would say, but this is right, that attack, that deadly attack, now is bringing Israel to a point of, I would say, Ben Gurionic decisions that Paris aspiration or vision of changing the entire Middle East for our interest.
Now, your last remarks were, I'm glad those were a positive note to end on for the Middle East and for the region, for the Iranians, for the Israelis. But I'm afraid we are all out of time for today's episode. But I would like to thank you again, Gadeer, for taking the time to share your insights and for joining us this week.
Thank you very much, Anaf, and keep following this fascinating region, Israel and the Middle East.
Yes, of course. Now, you are working with the Middle East Forum now. You are our Director of Eastern Mediterranean Policy. Is there anywhere else, if our viewers and listeners would like to follow your work, where they can find more of your writing or your research or what you're doing?
So, of course, with the diverse platforms of the Middle East Forum, the open sources, our website, we publish in newspaper in several languages, in our researchers, with our professors, with our, as a reliable think tanks, we have people everywhere from different nationalities, publishing in different languages, working in all layers. By the way, as you know, some of our work is under the table to respect or understanding the sensitivities of the Middle East. Some of the crucial talks are under Chatham House rule to protect our allies, to bring constructive dialogues, meaningful conversations. So we're trying to follow up, to shape, to influence policy as much as we can. And I believe people who are interested and following or studying the Middle East will find us everywhere.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you again for taking the time to join us and update us.
Thank
For
you.
our Viewers and listeners, please join us on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for our Israel Insider podcast this week with Alex Selsky. I thank you all again for joining us, for your participation. I hope you all enjoyed the stream, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you.